Hello, and welcome back to Political Science 101 or History 101, the history of the American political system. We are on Chapter 11, and we are finishing up. This is part 2 of Chapter 11, and we are finishing up discussing how Congress works. And right now we are talking about incumbency. And we are still trying to use the PowerPoint along with our tape lecture. So let's continue. Okay. All right. So who can be a member of Congress? We talked about the power of incumbency. It's almost, they kind of liken it to almost a hereditary entitlement in the book, almost like nobility. And honestly, we don't really understand nobility in the U.S. Nobility is really something in Europe and especially England that even still has some far-reaching circumstances and far-reaching effects. But incumbency is when you are an elected official already and then you're running again and you have a much better chance of being reelected just simply because people know your name. Okay, so it lists a bunch of advantages that incumbency comes with incumbency. Congressional franking privileges. You can mail newsletters, other correspondence, constituents at the taxpayer's expense. So you can obviously be reelected on someone else's, taxpayers' money. Professional staff, you have people working for you. And you have resources that new candidates do not have. Lawmaking power. They can also help pass laws that benefit their state, again, allowing them to be reelected. Access to the media. And as you read the rest of your chapter, you know that the Senate is more apt to having that access to the media because they're more of an elite club because there's only 100 of them and not 400 plus. Also, name recognition. Incumbent members usually are better known to voters than the challengers are. So that is a huge piece of the power of incumbency. Okay, congressional terms. House of Representatives serve 2-year terms. Senators serve 6-year terms. Each congressional term is divided into 2 regular sessions. It talked about how it used to be a much shorter time period, but because of public demand, they do need to work more. There are short recesses and breaks, but it's pretty much year-round. Still what's troubling is attendance because I know as we read, when you go to the Capitol building and you're in the House of Representatives, there is actually an electronic, it almost looks like a scoreboard that has everyone's name and what they voted. And the Senate does not have that, if you were careful paying attention to your reading. And it also shows whether or not somebody showed up or not. I believe that record is accessible for senators. It's just up there on like a scoreboard type of apparatus for the House of Representatives. I just remember seeing that and thinking, why are all these people not here? Okay, so it was just a little bit troubling. Let's see. We know the president can only serve 2 terms. And, you have senators and representatives that have unlimited terms. And I'm not really sure, with the corruption that is perceived on Capitol Hill and in Congress, maybe that is something that needs to change. It says, for example, Robert Byrd, a Democrat from West Virginia, served for 52 years. I'm also aware of the South Carolina, I don't know if he was a senator. I think he was a senator. Strom Thurmond. I once heard him speak. He served for a really long time as well. Okay. The Supreme Court is really strange to me. And, those of you that are paralegal majors, I would love to have your feedback on this. The Supreme Court has ruled that the state level attempts to impose term limits on members of the U.S. House or Senate, it's unconstitutional. And I'm just not sure. I'm not sure I buy that. I'm not sure that that's a good thing. Okay. All right. So we talked about congressional terms. We will continue. Okay, elections. Who can be a member of Congress? We already talked about that. 25 years old, 7 years a citizen for House of Representatives, senator, 30 years old, 9 years a citizen. A president needs to be 35, and he must be born a citizen. Okay, the power of incumbency we just talked about. Sorry about that. Franking, privileges, that sort of thing. Name recognition, power of incumbency. Nice little table. Okay, incumbent candidates. Okay, and how the re-election goes, you can see very, very close, unless they, the numbers are in the single digits. The ones that were defeated, and they must have had a good reason to be defeated. Maybe they upset, their constituents, and it's amazing. Very low numbers for those not reelected. Congressional elections, we just spoke about all this, so sorry. 2-year terms, 6-year term limits. Okay, congressional leadership, the committee system, and bicameralism. Okay, this is really interesting. The House leadership, Speaker of the House, chosen by the members of the House, has a substantial control over what bills get assigned to which committee. May preside over sessions, votes, in the event of the tie. He interprets and applies House rules and schedules all bills for action. He plays an important role in making committee assignments. And that, from what I have heard and what I understand, there are a lot of politics going on when, who you're nice to and what kind of reputation you have, because they assign you, are you going to be a chairperson of a committee? Which committee is going to be an awful committee or a wonderful committee? It almost sounds like middle school all over again. And of course, we know about the polarization right now between the Democrats and the Republicans. Again, one of our history analysis words, polarization being they're acting as if they're exact opposites, which is really sad because there are so many things that they can come together on and see as sameness, although keeping their differences and their different convictions. But the polarization just, I think, really conveys the thoughts that George Washington said about the demonization of each other using fear, and lies on both sides. I think that's really, it takes a mature citizen to realize it's both sides. Okay, congressional leadership, the committee system, and bicameralism. House leadership, you have the majority leader, sounds just like it is, elected by the caucus of majority party members, acts as the spokesman, plans the party legislative program, and organizes other party members to support legislation. Then you have the minority leader, and the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, she's a Democrat from California, is now the House minority leader. She was the first woman to ever hold the Speaker position. Okay, and then they have they had a picture of John Boehner earlier, who is from Ohio. We have a lot of mention of Ohio and Kentucky, very exciting, in our political science textbook. Kevin McCarthy, a Republican from California. Okay, House Majority Leader. All right, there's a picture of him not with gray hair. In the book, he has gray hair. Okay, the whip. Really interesting. The whip kind of finds out which way you're going to vote and really has a lot of kind of a rallying cry. Very interesting. The whips originated in the British House of Commons, named after the whipper-in, the person to whip people into shape and get them to, choose sides and figure out which way they're going to vote. And it was, named after somebody who kept the hounds together in a fox hunt sort of, getting them together on a party's position. All right. The Constitution also makes for the vice president to preside over the Senate. And the vice president can cast a vote in the Senate only if it's a tie. He does call the Senate to order when you see the presidential, when the president is giving his address, you see the vice president calling it to order and that sort of thing. The vice president cannot, however, he cannot debate. He's not allowed. All right. You have a president pro tem when, the vice president's not there because he also is touring the country possibly and speaking or meeting with people, party leaders, very, very powerful people. On page 249, and I wonder, we might be able to see them. Yeah, here it is. You have the congressional leadership, the committee system, and bicameralism, Senate leadership. It's elected by President pro tem, is elected by the whole Senate, serves in the absence of the vice president. And then you have Mitch McConnell is the bottom picture, and that is Mitch McConnell was the Senate Majority Leader, and the Democratic Senator Harry Reid was the Senate Minority Leader, and Harry Reid is pictured on top. And of course, we know what Mitch McConnell looks like because we are from Cincinnati and Kentucky, many of us. Okay, congressional committees, really important. Which committees you get put on and which ones you don't. Having friends in high places and, trying to get good position. And a lot of it does have to do with seniority. It divides the legislative labor. You have subcommittees, special committees, joint committees, conference committees. All right, here's the standing committees in the 113th Congress from 2013 to 2015. Really interesting. Agriculture, appropriations, armed service, budget, education, and the workforce. Energy, commerce, financial services, foreign affairs, homeland security, House administration, judiciary, natural resources. Oversight and government reform, rules, science and technology, small business, standards of official conduct, transportation and infrastructure, veterans affairs, ways and means. And those are the House committees. Senate committees are agriculture, nutrition and forestry, appropriations, armed services, banking, housing, urban affairs, budget, commerce, science, transportation, energy and natural resources, environment and public works, finance, foreign relations, health, education, labor and pensions, homeland security and government affairs, judiciary, rules and administration, small business, entrepreneurship, and veterans affairs. Now, hopefully there are people who are putting people on different committees because their backgrounds. I would like to think that. And honestly, I can't contest that unless I know differently. But for me, with a teaching background, a history background, I would be pretty bored if you put me on the budget committee. Of course, if I was budgeting for education or that sort of thing, I would want to be a part of that. But, historians really don't like numbers. I'm just going to be honest. And, but I would be ecstatic to be on, the education committee, which is, where'd it go? Oh, I know there was an health, education, labor, and pensions. So, depending on what committee you want to be on, kind of is who you're nice to, who you can get along with, and that sort of thing. Okay. All right, major differences between the House and the Senate. That's a really good table to really look at. Legislative process. There's a great table on page 252. Please check it out. It explains it wonderfully. All right, here it is. This is what I was talking about, how a bill becomes a law. Okay, the legislative process. investigating the impeachment power. Two presidents have been brought to impeachment.